Today, I'm excited to introduce you to an amazing independent filmmaker who is also a professor at Temple University in Philadelphia. Her students have rave reviews about her classes and are so appreciative of what they've learned from her. Please welcome LeAnn Erickson. LeAnn, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm thrilled to be able to speak with you and share some of your insight about being an independent filmmaker, producer, director, writer, shooter, editor, everything. You handle it all. And also, it'll be interesting to hear your take on what it's like to be a college professor and teaching, the next generation of filmmakers. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Jody, for inviting me. I'm excited to take part in this podcast.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to start by asking you how you broke into the business. Mm-hmm. What was your driving force? Did you have a mentor or an influencer in your life?
Mm-hmm. It's a strangely personal story. I was a high school art teacher, and my parents were both teachers, public school teachers. So it was something that, was not a surprise that I went into. Always wanted to be an artist. And my parents, being pretty practical, were like, well, yeah, but what can you do with an art degree? At least get an education degree so you could teach. And since they were both teachers, that made a lot of sense to me. But in my 20s, my mother became very sick and died from cancer. And it really made me reassess kind of like my goals in life. And my partner at the time, who's now my wife, said to me, if you could do anything, what would you do? And I said, it's ridiculous. I'd make films, but come on, that'll never happen, kind of thing. And she was so encouraging and saying, well, why can't it? Of course it could happen. And so I started on a path that took me to graduate school, and and then led to a very meaningful teaching career that also allows me to pursue my own artistic interest in film as an expressive medium.
I love that story because you really share your heart, and you decided to go your own path despite. I had a similar thing with my dad, believe it or not. He had a company and he was in the ad business for many years. And I told him, hey, and at the time he had several health and beauty aid stores, and he wanted me to come and learn the business, and I helped them build it. Mm-hmm. And I just said, this is just not what I want to do. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I don't want to go in the ad business, but I do want to be a filmmaker and a producer and a writer. And he looked at me like, please don't do that. Don't do that. I said, he's like, it's not for the faint at heart. And I have repeated that conversation many times. So it's nice to hear that you pursued your own dream, which is amazing.
I think we can all agree the gift of youth, of being young, is that you have not gotten all of that self-doubt. You think, I want to do this, so by God, I'm going to do it. And young people dive in and take chances where the older you get, the more careful you are. And so, I went to graduate school at 28. And it was the right timing from the standpoint of what was happening both in my personal life, but being young enough still to believe I could do it and not have any doubts about that. I'm going to make this work. And, it was the best decision I could have made.
And I love that you share that it's been so fulfilling, because a lot of people, especially young people, get hung up on how much money they're going to make, or they want to follow in their parents' footsteps. Their parent was a lawyer or a doctor, and they really don't want to do that, but they're kind of being pushed in that direction. It does take a lot of inner strength to say, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to take some hits, right? And I got to get back up and keep going. So I love that story. And again, the other thing I wanted to say is how fabulous it is that you have a partner who supports you, even though you could have been, struggling, couldn't make ends meet, had to have 3 jobs, to make sure that, so, kudos to your partner and to you for, your stick-to-itiveness, because there's a lot of chatter, right? There's a lot of people saying, oh, you can't do this, you're not good enough, you're a woman, whatever it is. We've all heard those things. So I give you tremendous credit for just, living your dream. And I'm sure you share that with your students based on what I've heard. You are an amazing professor, mentor, and just a friend to these students. What drives you every day?
I talk a lot to my students about, that they have this amazing group of skills in their pocket, and trying to decide what to use that group, what to use that skill set to do in the world, to use your skills and your passion to do some good in the world. That's the greatest gift you can have. And that's the best possible goal I could ever have for my own son, for my students, and for myself, that you can do something you love and actually end up doing some good in the world in the process. That's a day well spent.
And it's interesting because I do have that conversation with a lot of interns as well, and my own children, and maybe you've had this conversation with your son, when you are trying to determine what it is you want to do with the rest of your life, find something you're passionate about that brings you personal satisfaction, because you have to get up every single day and do that job.
Yes.
And it's very tough to be pigeonholed or say, well, my family wants me to do this. There's 4 generations in my family and I'm going to break the mold. None of it is easy. And sometimes, you go this way and this way. I mean, I've had a lot of different jobs, but I have also reminded people that if you take something of value from each one of those jobs, you build yourself to be a stronger, more well-rounded person, which then allows you to be an even better producer, director, writer, because you have a lot of your own life experiences to pull from. Would you agree with that?
I would. I think what you're saying about passion is absolutely crucial, because the reality, though, also of this business is there's a lot of no, there's a lot of rejection. It's very challenging to raise money to do these projects. Film is a very expensive art practice. And if you to tough it out and to work those days and to keep getting up the next day after you've heard no, there has to be that passion there and that goal. Otherwise, it would be just too much. You know what I mean? I don't think you could take it day in and day out. I've been doing this now, gosh, went to graduate school in the late 80s. So it's a very long time I've been doing this. And I have not had that problem. There's days I have to pick myself back up when you've written 40 grants and you have not yet heard back yes, and you're starting. My students will tell you, I always tell them, you have to have an A budget, a B budget, and a C budget for every film project that you propose, because you will make it. Otherwise, why are you doing this? But that might be the C budget, and how does that change this project? I say that to them because that's exactly what I do. I have to make an A, a B, and a C and figure out what is the absolute minimum I would need to make this work and what will have to change. But the question is never, oh, I guess I won't do it. That isn't part of the equation.
So once you commit yourself to a project, it's done. It's a done deal.
It's a done deal, no matter how many years. The most recent large project was a documentary I finished in 2010 called Top Secret Rosie's the female computers of World War II. And this was a huge project, a feature-length documentary about a number of female mathematicians who did secret war work, secret ballistics research for the Army during World War II. And it inevitably, when I would screen it and appear with the film, someone would ask, how long did it take you to finish this film? And I said, it actually took twice as long for me to make this film as it took the United States to win World War II. Just to put it into perspective, it took 7 years for me from the time I learned about the topic and began my research and fundraising to completing it. And so that's the long haul that you better love this work and love this subject, because that's the kind of commitment it might be in order to finish a project like that.
Right. And then the other thing too is all along the way during those 7 years, you're still having to do other work to put food on your table,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yes.
all of us who have these dreams and passions typically will have, a day job, and that's more of like our side hustle. Unfortunately, I mean, there's some people like Ken Burns who this is what he does for a living, but I can assure everyone listening that Ken Burns didn't like out of the gate just become Ken Burns. He worked many hundreds and thousands of hours, pulling together as you did. And your film is beautiful. It's so well done. And just so I love the information and these women. I mean, talk about rock star women, right?
Yeah.
They don't get nearly the notoriety or, has there ever been any kind of awards given to these women?
Well, that story, the craziest aspect of that is, as somebody who a longtime feminist and always interested in women's history, and the fact that I think we all know that the history most of us learn is not a full picture into what it really took to get anywhere in the US, in the world, and so on, that there are so many stories that have been left out. And it has been one of the goals of my work to do that, to find those stories and illuminate them. And the irony is that, when I found this, it was completely by accident that I found this story. I was actually working on a documentary about a group of Philadelphia women who fought blockbusting during the 1950s and 60s. And for some people who are maybe listening and don't know what that is, blockbusting was at the time a very unethical but not illegal real estate tactic, where a real estate agent might go into an all-white neighborhood, sell to a Black family, then go to all the neighbors and say, Black people are moving into your neighborhood. You might want to consider selling. And then what they would create is this panic selling, a boom to them, of course. All of a sudden, they turn over entire neighborhoods in the course of a few months, make a boatload of money, but all they did was raise racial panic that never existed, and there was no reason even for it. But it was a terrible thing that was going on in cities all across the United States, particularly during the 1950s and into the 60s. And this group of women, who I discovered through a Unitarian church I was attending, and found one that found another that found another, you know how documentary works, that these twin sisters who were they're both Jewish and very involved in the politics of the Jewish community in Philadelphia. And they were, in fact, in order to fight it, they both became real estate agents and opened a woman-run, woman-owned, only employed other women, trained women to be real estate agents, and then gently integrated the Mount Airy's neighborhoods in Philadelphia, which to this day are still integrated in a way that many neighborhoods in big cities are not. Closing in on the end of that documentary, which is called Neighbor Ladies, and they're talking to each other because I'm getting their photographs and scanning them. And one says to the other, now, was this when we were living still in Gray's Ferry? And the other one says, no, that's when we were at Penn working for the Army. And I went, well, What are you
What?
talking about? And there's a, oh, during World War II, we were recruited out of high school to do math for the Army for World War, to help win World War II. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't believe I had never heard of such a thing. And come to find out, in fact, this was not a unique program at the University of Pennsylvania. Almost any large university that had a viable math program, in particular, any computing machines of any sort, analog computing machines, had a math panel, had a math program, because mathematics were absolutely crucial to every kind of work in the war effort, from engineering, weaponry, creating all of the weapons and also making them work. So I told them right then, I said, as soon as I'm finished with this documentary, I'm coming back. We got another one to do. And that's how that project started.
Wow, what an amazing story. I mean, you were digging deep for information, and wow, this new nugget of what a miracle. Thank you for
Yeah.
helping
They were
share
already in their 80s. These women were already in their 80s. And the first money I raised, it was actually the easiest money I raised ever, but it was the first money in, was because I could make the imperative that this era, this group of World War II era people, we're losing them every day. And this was,
right.
in the 2000s. And so I was able to raise money to start. And I started by interviewing every elderly person that ends up in the documentary. I did them first because I was so worried. And I did, in fact, during the time of that year of fundraising, lose one of the crucial people, because,
Yeah.
that's the reality of that whole era now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, thank goodness the film lives on. It's still,
It's amazing.
I'm surprised that, it just got picked up for Amazon Prime. So it's got a life after 12 years. It shows you that these stories of these women and their accomplishments, they're not going to go out of date, which is a very rewarding thing.
They changed history.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and people should know that story. And I do think that there's more awareness. And it reminds me a little bit of the movie Hidden Figures, where
Yes.
you didn't know about the women who, were so influential in NASA.
Yes.
I mean, they were incredible, and you never heard their stories. So this is really aligned with that. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny that you're out talking about Hidden Figures too, because when I saw that film, that's what encouraged me then to say, a great follow-up to the documentary, which I mean has had a great life and a wide reach in a particular demographic. It's played on public television, and it's still being distributed by PBS, and it's on Canopy, and it has an audience. But in order to reach the broad general audience, I'm well aware that what we're talking about is like Netflix, Hulu, fictionalized version streaming of this story. And so that's why I'm the latest iteration of this story. I'm not giving up on it, is to pursue the idea of creating a dramatic episodic that's fictionalized, but around this real story of these real women who worked here in Philadelphia.
Amazing. I love it. And we're going to be your biggest cheerleaders.
Yay.
I'm going to just get back to teaching a little bit. So what brings you joy about being a professor and gives you promise for the future?
I often say to my students when it's time to do evaluations, we always do class evaluations, course evaluations at the end of each semester. And I tell them that, the most important question to me is the one that says, how interested were you in this class before you took it? And it's 2.4 out of 5, let's say. How interested are you now? And it might be 4.7 out of 5. That means I got them interested in something they initially didn't think they would be interested in. That is very rewarding, because now I'm finding that something that I love and I believe in, passionately, I'm able to, spark that in someone who didn't think they were interested at all. That is a real accomplishment.
How did you support these students? And even how were you able to really, during the pandemic, which is, everything was virtual, we're a hands-on business, right? You dive in, you're on set 16 hours a day.
Right.
What did you have to do to shift the dynamic and change your teaching methodology and also continue to keep your students engaged in the process? I'm sure that was a bit of a challenge.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. Our business is a people business. I mean, it is about relationships, and it's about, connecting, and it was a shock to everybody in so many ways. I mean, we cannot discount the psychological effect that these past 2 years have had on people. It's not just that it might be a setback for the economy, or things had to change in our business, but that it had a true effect on real human beings. I do see that in my students. I recognize it. And what I tried to do, because of course we did move immediately in March of 2020, we right in the middle, right after spring break, we moved online 100%. And had to try to finish out, our masterclass thesis films and so on. The biggest thing that I tried to talk about was that they should take this forum of Zoom seriously, because I said, do you honestly think that a multi-million-dollar business like Hollywood is just going to go, ho hum, I guess we'll wait this out and figure out what we'll do in a month, a year, now over 2 years? No, they're a business. They're going to figure out how to make this work, and we're going to do it too. And this is how my son, who's been in the business since he graduated in 2014, has always conducted business meetings on Zoom. He was an editor and now a senior creative, and his collaborators are all over the world. They work in Los Angeles and he's in New York. This is how business gets done. So let's take it serious. Shape yourself up. I don't want to see your unmade bed behind you. I don't want to see you laying on a pillow. You're going to have to be a professional. Nobody eats, nobody's drinking, nobody's smoking. The kind of things I saw in that first couple months, I put the hammer down, and I'm like, shape up. This is not the way business is going to be. And I feel like I'm the person that can say, buck up, you can do this. I'm your cheerleader. We're going to prepare this together, and you're going to move forward. I try to empower them, not to say, boo-hoo, poor us, because man, it affected me too. But the one thing about being a teacher, I've got personal problems. I'm not immune to that. I have doubts. I have, days when things aren't going well, but I don't bring it into the classroom, because that's not my job. You know what I mean? That's not, and I don't want them to do it either. We have to perform sometimes, and that is part of our professional world. When you screw up, you say, I'm sorry, and we all move on, be a human being, but keep in mind that there's an expectation, and you can rise to meet it. I believe you are strong enough. I believe you have the talent. I believe you can do this. And so my job is, I think, to make them believe it.
It talks a lot about flexibility, resiliency, commitment to your craft. And, the big word in the industry these days is pivot. You really had to come up with ways to maintain a level of professionalism, continue to reach, to hit your deadlines.
Yep.
And still perform at the highest level. So how did you think your kids did?
They did actually great. I think, what you were just saying, those kind of traits of flexibility and being able to think on your feet. And that's what people have to do all the time. And you can't just say things are going wrong on set, so therefore let's just close it down and we'll come back another day. No, you have to make this work. So you have to learn how to be flexible, to keep your cool, to read a room, to pivot, like you said, to problem solve on the spot. Those are skills that I think people need in our business, no matter what level and what area and what job description they have. And so
And in
those are,
general too, right?
yes,
I mean, we
those
all
are
need to be
great life.
resilient.
Yes, those are great life skills anyway. And so
100%.
the fact that they're also key to our profession, I don't know, that seems like a great thing, that you're kind of doubling up, that what you're learning in your job is so applicable directly to your full life. That's nice.
It's interesting too, because it does carry through to your personal life. In my world, like, everybody comes to Jody to solve problems, to make decisions quickly, or
Yep.
find a new angle to make something work.
Yep.
And you do have to think on your feet, and you do have to also maintain a level of calm, because your crew,
Mhm.
your team feeds off of you.
Yes.
And if your hair is on fire all the time, or you're freaking out, it's the trickle down theory. You know, we always have to be the voice of reason. So to your point, what a great lesson that you were able to, again, shift the thought process around it, to let your kids know, your students, that, hey, this is part of life. You know, we don't always know what's going to happen, but we do know that we have to keep moving forward,
Yep.
right? I
The
mean,
world turns.
otherwise,
We get up the next morning and we've got to
Exactly.
decide how we're going to face that morning. Yep.
be ready for anything. You know, be prepared in your mind. The what ifs, when I'm planning a shoot, I'm always thinking, if this happens, what will we do? If that happens, what can we do instead? Because nothing, you know, I've been a reality TV producer for a long time, and documentaries and things, and not everything works the way you set it up, does it?
It never does. Are you kidding me? We talk about this in class. I said, no matter how much you plan, something will go wrong. Something will. And the more planning you do, the less will go wrong, which is great. But you always have to be ready for, and have that ability, I think, to do that, and be able to think on your feet.
If you haven't done your homework and due diligence,
right,
it'll show pretty quickly when that first shift happens.
Yep.
Even if it's, oh, well, we already got the permit, we're allowed to shoot here, but you know, the police have shown up on the street, right?
Right.
What are you doing here? Where's your permit? Where's this? Well, you have to be prepared. And I'm sure that's something that you preach to your students. Preparation is so key.
Absolutely. When I do fundraising discussions, I always say that the best fundraising thing you can do is prepare, because that'll save you so much money in the long run, that that's like money in the bank. Your time well spent on preparation is better than money in that sense, because it'll save you so much, not just emotional and mental stress, but also, you know, the financial impact on your project.
When you think about all the students' lives that you've touched and affected, do you have some people who, you know, you've seen them, you know, perform at such a high level and just say, wow, that's just, it makes your heart feel so full at that point, right?
I always watch the credits. I love watching the credits, because I have both personal friends that I went to graduate school with who are out in Hollywood and are very successful in different ways, as well as people I know who are actors, but also my former students who are doing great. And I get a thrill seeing their names in the credits. I'm very proud of them. But I have to also say, you know, of all these years of working, there are plenty of students my former students, who keep track of me, which is a compliment to me, that they feel something, that they remember me in some way and think about me, and I'm somewhere in their lives. And it's okay if they didn't end up doing whatever they may have started out doing. I think all of us, I mean, one of the things, I start out the first class of this new class I'm teaching. It's called Artist in the Business World. And it's designed to get students ready to be successful in freelancing and all the various aspects, because our business is one gig to the next. But if
Right.
that's all it is job to job, you will never build a career. And so I really talk about the fact that in America, no matter if you're what gender you are, what race you are, the average American will change jobs 12 times in the course of the 40-ish year career span that's ahead of them, which tells you that, yeah, it's not written in stone and things will change. And quite honestly, I think we all know that what we're doing now, in 5 years, the technology will be completely different. There will be jobs that nobody's even knew, never even heard of. So of course we have to be flexible and trying new things and being willing to do that and take the chances. One of my favorite quotes that I always put in as the first quote in my classes, and it's in my office, is a Samuel Beckett quote that says, ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. That this is part of our life. This is part of our profession. You will fail, but it's the people who pick themselves back up and keep going. I always say that, the industry is not a meritocracy. There are tons of talented people out there who just couldn't fail and fail again and fail better. They couldn't do it. And the people who can persevere, they're the ones who will make it in the business. There's no doubt in my mind.
That is such a valuable lesson for everyone to learn, and just in life, as you just have to keep picking up and moving forward. Take us through the process of how you're raising money, your fundraising efforts. Temple University has been a huge supporter of your work.
The reality of the United States and our society and the economics is that the arts are not, supported on a national governmental level. It's not like you can go to Europe and you can see how art is integral to the idea of culture and is then supported in financial ways. It's not the way it is in the United States. That's the reality. So now we have to figure out ways of still doing our work. The biggest challenge for me is the balance between the idea that I have and the work that I want to do, and then how to afford to be able to do it. For many years, I would say to my students that I'm not making money doing my work. I don't have to live on it. I am a teacher, and that's how I can make my living. But I can also say with pride that I've never spent any of my own money on my own work. I always say to the fundraising classes that if you're paying for your work, this is a hobby, and it's a very expensive hobby, but that's what it is, because you have yet to engage an audience out there and find the support so that you can get your work out to that audience. That is, fundraising and exhibition go hand in hand in that sense. And so knowing who your audience is and where they are, then finding them to get them to support your work, that is the challenge. And it does take time. The average, they say, for either a feature documentary or a feature narrative film from conception to finish is 7 to 10 years to do independent work. And that's mainly because of fundraising, not because you can't get the work done, not because you can't find great people to work on these projects. It's because it takes money to do them, and it takes a long time to raise that money. And in most cases, you're raising them in stages. So you raise the initial money that gets you started, then you raise the money that might maybe finish the shooting phase, and then you raise the money for the post-production phase, and then you raise the money to distribute the work. So that does take time. And I have an ability to be patient with the projects. And I also, I juggle things so that it isn't that I don't do any work except finish one thing in 7 years. I do smaller projects. I do things I can handle that don't require the kind of funds, where I had to raise $100,000 for the Top Secret Rosie's documentary, and I had about $250,000 in in-kind money. That was by far the biggest project I ever did. On the other hand, the 12-minute personal documentary that ended up getting into hot docs probably cost me $500 to make, because I got free film from Kodak events. And I had to pay to have it developed and then given to me as digital files. And then I can do my own editing. I can do my own shooting. You're absolutely right. I'm able to do that. I'd love to pay more people to help me, but I'm also able to do so much of it myself. So it might take me longer, but I can finish things. And that is a gift, in that sense.
It is. And it's a really good point to make, because you and I have both been in a position where, you don't have the funds.
Yeah.
And you think, how am I going to get, to the next level? And you are actually shooting a lot of your work on an iPhone.
Yep.
Which you and I had a conversation about this. You see some of these iPhone commercials and I'm like, no way. My husband and I are both in the business, right? And we're like, no way did they shoot that on an iPhone.
Yeah.
And then you come to me and you say, yeah, I shoot on the iPhone.
Yeah.
And it made me feel better in some sense. And then the other way, I'm thinking, wow, I'm spending too much money on my shoots.
There we go. Yeah. I came to the conclusion in 2013, I started this collaborative project, an online video project that it was in an effort to kind of get the love back. Top Secret Rosie's kind of beat it out of me in terms of how much fundraising it took, and the kind of production values you need for broadcast television and PBS distribution. It's a completely different animal. And it kind of took all the fun out of it for me. And so I wanted to get the fun back in that sense. So I started doing these very short, like 1 minute, no longer than 3-minute pieces with a friend of mine. And she lives in Iowa and I live here on the East Coast. And we met up in Dublin when I was teaching there. And I said, come on, let's do this. We've been talking about this forever. I need to get my mojo back here. My creativity, I need a boost. And we said we're only using pocket technology, and we're going to use only one shot. We really put some very limiting parameters on it in the initial days when we started this project, just to get that creative life back going. And it costs zero money to do this work. We're putting it on the web, which costs nothing to distribute. And over the years, it was so exciting and so lovely to do it. For instance, last year we found a poet who gave us 3 different poems that became our inspiration. We have 20 collaborators now working with us. I mean, wow. It has grown from the two of us trying to keep, the life alive in our art, to being this really cool dynamic thing that's going on. And this coming year right now, we've started, it's called Leftovers, where we engaged 3 different audio artists to give us work that was left over. In other words, you maybe created something and you never used it, or you created a piece and you never did anything with it. It didn't end up on your album or on your performance or something. So you give us your leftovers and we go back and dig in archives, like all the things I shot on my iPhone that I never used on anything. That's the only thing, that's our parameter. It's called Leftovers. And this is our 10th year now doing Homegrown Stories. So this is a really fun anniversary project, but it really shows, demonstrates you can do the work. It just depends on, what's available. And I always say that to, with the indie filmmakers, make a list. Like, what do you have that you can call on? You own a car, that's something. Okay, good. What do you have that you can call on? Some good actors, list their names. You have some locations you could use for free, write them down. Now you can start writing something with the parameters you have, because there's never an excuse, I can't make a film. No, that's not true. It's just that you can't make the one you imagined yet, because you don't have the budget, you're not famous enough, whatever the case may be. But don't tell me you can't make the work, because yes, you can. Yes, you can. And you have a 4K camera you're carrying around in your pocket. Of course you can do the work.
Because it really is inspirational, because so many people here know a lot or feel that they're stuck because they don't have the money or the backing or the, not just financial support, but, emotional support. Because some people, oh, you're crazy, you'll never do that. And I think that, sharing some of the links and things of what you're working on will be really inspirational. And, we're hoping that there are some young people that are going to be listening to the podcast who want to break into the business, as well as people who may want to switch a career or, have new ways of approaching some of the hurdles that we encounter along the way. So what's next for you, LeAnn? I mean, you're going to keep teaching, we hope, because all of your students love you.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I am thinking of my third act. I'm closing in on the end of my teaching career. I feel I might have a few more years left, but starting to think about what will be my next, kind of my third act. And but in the meantime, on the most recent horizon is, as you know, I just finished a new piece. I finished at the end of January, an animated personal documentary called, I Heart Jack Lalanne, a cartoon memoir. And so I'm making a huge, and when I say huge, I mean huge, 100, right now my film festival list is 100 festivals, but I'm chipping through it. I've got 20 that have already entered since, February 1. I have high hopes for it that I'm hoping to get into. Now that festivals are back in person, I really timed it that way so that because I do want to be back. Going to film festivals is so exciting, not only to see your work screened, of course, and hear audiences' reactions, real people's reactions, but also to meet up with filmmakers, to talk with them, to meet up with distributors and other, to just really make connections again that I've really missed. I've totally missed all of that. So I'm hoping that what comes out of this push now will be in a year, I'll take a sabbatical just to go to film festivals, just to tour the film and see where it might lead next. My son collaborates a lot with me, which is a gift. He's so talented and so much fun. I'm very intense and he's completely laid back. So we make a pretty good team when he can calm me down and I can, get him up. Yeah. It's really, we work together so well. And he was a producer on this with me and was instrumental in many steps of the way. So traveling together and maybe moving to our next project together, I would love to do that. That's where I'm looking at. But as well as I am in the process of pitching the Top Secret Rosie's fictional episodic, trying to get a production company to say, oh yeah, this is a go. We can make this work, because I have the entire a Bible. I have the pilot script done. I mean, in other words, I've got all the moving parts. I just need to find a company that can say, yeah, we can make this happen, because I can't make that happen. That's too big for me. But I would love to see that. I would be happy even just if I passed it off and said, yeah, run with this. But so there are, as always, I have 2 or 3 things going on. Leftovers. I'll be doing 3 little videos this year for that. And so there's a lot of different things, but it keeps me excited about the work and about, getting it out to an audience.
Before we go though, and I know that we touched upon it, but Temple as a program, just let's give them, kudos and some praise. Because they bring in extremely talented people like yourself, and then they support your work. Can you share with us how much that means to you?
Many students who will come back will say, oh man, I wish you would have done that when I was here. And I said, if our program isn't constantly evolving, we're doing something wrong, because the business is always changing and we are trying to constantly be more flexible, like you said, and on top of what's happening and able to address that, to keep our program current as well as then, make sure that we're giving our students the tools they need right now to get out there and get into the business in any way they are interested in. One of the beautiful things about the Department of Film and Media Arts, it's part of the School of Theater, Film and Media Arts, is that we consider film and media art forms. And so we encourage that kind of, we're not like trying to create trained monkeys who know how to push buttons and work software. It's that you have something to say, and this is a creative medium through which you can say something. We really encourage the unique personal stories of our students, and we want to support them in getting their work and their voices out there to their audiences, not my audiences, not one of my colleagues' audience, but their unique audiences. So that is definitely something that I feel we are successful at. We also are very mission oriented in the sense of creating artists to go out in their communities and make a difference, use their artistic practice to have a positive impact on the world. And many of our students do that with their work. So I feel that we are being successful in that way. I can say, just as on a personal note, as an artist myself, honestly, I would not be able to do the work I've done without the financial support of my department and the school and the center that I work in, as well as the emotional support of the chairs and my colleagues. When I go on a sabbatical, other people have to step up, they have to cover my tracks. The world doesn't stop turning because LeAnn went on sabbatical. No, we're going to still keep teaching our courses. Our students are moving through the program. People have to step up, and I have great colleagues. Many of them are my actual personal friends. I feel fortunate because I have a lot of friends in the business, in the academy, who are not friends with the people they work as. They put up with each other. No, that's not the way it is in our department. We really love and respect each other, and we work well together. And I think because of that, we're able to give our students a really positive experience that they can then move forward. And I think our alumni, who are so loyal to us and are so good at giving back to our current students, appearing in my classes, coming on panels, jurying our film festivals, and so on, is that shows we did something right, because they have a warmth and a feeling for our program that they do want to keep giving back to the next generation that's moving up. So it's an exciting program to be in, and I'm very proud to be part of it.
It's really a testament to the commitment that the school has made to supporting artists and artistry, right? Because they want people who are at the top of their game, who are also not just there. We always used to hear, the teachers at the school, in college, they're teaching because they couldn't make it in the real world. Well, that's really not the case, as we all know, now that we're grown up. But for you, you're really talking the talk, doing the walk, and you're such an incredible role model for your students. And I think it's just incredible what you're able to do on your own. I don't know if you ever sleep.
I do. I actually embrace a work-life balance. I compartmentalize certain points of my life, and particularly in the last few years, I felt like so many people, I think the pandemic, if there is one positive thing out of it, it made people reassess, what am I doing with my life? Is this how I want to spend it? If this were the end of my life, is this what I wanted to end on? And I have really done a better job, in my opinion, of like leaving my weekends completely free. I push to finish work and requirements and grade things, and I leave the time in my schedule. I've always scheduled in time for my own work. My students know that because I tell them to do it. And then yet also leave time to see my friends, to go hiking, to go biking, to go kayaking, the things I love to do. I love camping. I love being out in nature. And if I don't do those things, I'm a lesser human being. And that means my work will suffer. I don't think anybody wins by this idea of bragging. I'm a workaholic. I do 80 hours of work a week. then I believe your work is probably suffering, because nobody can do quality work at that level 1 year, week in, week out, year in, year out. You are burning yourself out. It is no good for your work personally. It's no good for your relationships. And it's no good for you as a human being physically. Stress is not good, And so
Correct.
I think people figuring out how to do that, that's an important lesson, just as important as, your career should not be your life. I don't believe that. And it's just one part. It can be a very important part, but it should only be one part of a balanced life. And so I feel like it's taken me many years to learn that. And, but I think it's, maybe one of the best lessons I could maybe leave my students with.
It has been such a joy having you here with us today. I mean, you're really amazing. And I do want to take your life balance course myself. I'm going to tune in on Zoom. You're a breath of fresh air. And I love the fact that you're not just hand holding and smoothing things over, being the helicopter professor. You're giving and teaching valuable life lessons, and what a gift that really is. So I'm glad you're going to keep at it for another few years, and we're going to be eager to watch all of your films that are coming out, and we'll bring you back on and hear more about everything.
I'd love to do that. This has been really fun to be here, and I really appreciate you're also, a role model, because I know that my female students, they relish the opportunity to work with strong women who are successful or doing what they want to do, and to open up those opportunities. I know that internships, you're teaching too, and it takes more work in some ways sometimes to have an intern than it would be if you just hired somebody to do the job. But that's a really important way to give back to this crucial point when these students are between the school world and the work world, and this job can help them see where they're going and what's possible. These kind of opportunities are really crucial, and I know kudos to you for doing that for them as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's one of the best parts of my job. I love teaching and mentoring, the next generation of filmmakers, writer, producers, directors, and I look for ways to be able to support, the interns that we bring on, and it's a passion. It's definitely a passion, and we share that. So I thank you for saying that, LeAnn. You're terrific.